Hi, I'm Doug Fields from Download Youth Ministry, and I want to begin this video training by just applauding you for taking some time out of your busy life to get a little bit of youth ministry training. You know, one of the most attractive qualities that I look for in youth workers is their desire to learn. So, if you want to be an effective youth ministry leader, you've got to occasionally pause the doing of youth ministry and take some time to really think and evaluate about what you're doing, what type of leader you are. So thank you for being the type of leader that's willing to learn. Having worked in the church for over 3 decades and been around literally hundreds of youth workers, from college students to senior citizens, from extroverts to introverts, from those who volunteered willingly to those who kind of came in grudgingly, I've come to really value and appreciate the youth worker who is looking for ways to improve their relational youth ministry. So that's what we're going to talk about. What is relational youth ministry? And simply put, it's that everything in youth ministry starts with relationships. That relationships are the backbone of youth ministry, not programs. And see, too often we fall in love with programs and events, and these are simply vehicles for relationships to grow and to be fostered. So I want to present a few ideas about enhancing your relational capacity. Now let's just admit, programs are important. They're just not as important. Your weekly youth service, it might be great. Your small groups might be really well organized. Your occasional all-nighters may be, well, exhausting, even demonic. Personally, I hate all-nighters, and yet I know that teenagers love them because, at my age, an all-nighter has a whole new meaning. It means that I go to bed at night and I wake up in the morning and I didn't have to go to the bathroom, which is exciting. I pulled one last night. Anyway, here's my point. Those programs, they aren't the foundation of a good and healthy youth ministry. Relationships are the foundation. Relationships are what youth ministry is all about. And programs really just exist to help you and I develop healthy relationships. See, you are what makes an all-nighter or a youth service or that small group special. So when we as youth workers connect with students and we invest in their lives, we're really transforming an event into a meaningful ministry moment, one that could actually change a student's life forever. So some of you that are watching, you know this because your life has been changed, not because of an event, but because of a person. So how do we do this? How do we enhance our relational capacity? Let me just give you a few ideas. First is keep your eyes open. And I know that sounds weird, but it's actually really important. See, relational youth workers learn to keep their eyes open and look for students who are on the fringe. Relational youth workers they're highly tuned to be able to see and to sense those kids who feel awkward and alone and stand off to the side. Relational youth workers don't just build on existing relationships, they actually look for new ones too. Just think about the first time that you ever entered a youth service or a church, anywhere where you didn't know a lot of people. Remember how uncomfortable you felt? Can you even recall that feeling? But that's what teenagers feel when they walk through the doors of our youth ministry. And good relational youth workers, they have their eyes open for ways to make students feel welcomed and accepted and connected. And it's great to focus on the few that you know and you have a relationship with and those that are easy to talk to. But relational youth workers keep their eyes open on those on the outside. And let's be honest, it's really a lot easier to gravitate toward the kid who you're comfortable to talk to, the kid who has a great personality, they like you, they're fun. That makes youth ministry enjoyable. And while there's nothing wrong with that, and I would say some of the most profound ministry moments I've experienced and I've watched other leaders experience is when I've connected with a kid who is maybe isolated and tried to figure out how do I engage him and connect him either in a relationship with me or a relationship with somebody else. See, I think one of the mantras of relational youth ministry is no student stands alone. Think about that. No student stands alone. So when you go out of your way to connect with a kid who's not connecting, you're really creating a youth ministry that says, hey, in here, everyone is loved. Okay? In here, everyone is loved. I love that. Let me give you a second characteristic of a relational youth worker. Way to kind of enhance your effectiveness is really to maximize your limited time. And it's important to say, because let's be honest, most of us in here live very busy lives. And many youth workers I know, they're juggling so many responsibility that their time is their biggest hurdle to feeling good about what they do. Many years ago, I wrote a little book called Help, I'm a Volunteer Youth Worker. And I had one chapter that was titled this, Something is Better Than Nothing. And over the years, I've just got so much positive response from that chapter heading because so many leaders heap guilt on themselves because they feel that they're not doing enough for the ministry. And the truth that I want you to hear is there's always more to do in ministry. So it's easy to always feel guilty since there's more to do. So to combat that guilt, I encourage you to hang on to the healthier statement. Something is better than nothing. Let me give you an example. My wife, she's an amazing volunteer youth worker. And before we had any children of our own, she had a ton of time and she was always available to kids. But as our family grew, things changed. And by the time we had our third child, her time in youth ministry became very limited and her energy was drained because all the kids running around in the house. And, it's like every night in our house felt like an all-nighter. And I'm glad things have changed because our youngest is now in college and my two others, they're on their own. My wife has a lot more time to invest in ministry. As a matter of fact, as I'm recording this video right now, she's actually in Africa with a bunch of high school girls from her small group. But when the kids were young, my wife had to figure out a time how to maximize the time that she had available. And she understood the power of relationships, and she would combine her mom duties with being a relational youth worker. For example, she might take a high school girl with her when she went grocery shopping. And what we found is the teenagers, they love spending time with my wife. My own children, when they were little, they loved hanging out with an older teenager. And my wife not only got help with our kids, but she was able to invest her time and really to disciple a young girl outside of youth group. She learned how to maximize her limited time. That's a sign of a relational youth worker. So look for those informal opportunities to spend time with students and stop feeling guilty about what you're not doing. I know one volunteer youth worker who he carries note cards in his briefcase and he writes students encouraging letters while he's waiting at different places throughout his week. Just a simple note to tell teenagers that he cares about them. That's a relational move. Another leader sends quick bursts of encouragement texts before he jumps on his plane for business travel. I know another woman who invites girls over to her house to help make dinner for their family and then invites the girls to stay and have dinner. That is good relational youth ministry. Now, I was at the DMV last week, and if I had planned ahead, I could have actually written a book while I was waiting in line. But you get the idea. So maximize your limited time. Here's my final thought about how to enhance your relational capacity. It's get physical. Get physical. Now, obviously, I want to be very careful about how I state this, and I want you to please be careful about how you listen to this point, because it's really a point about touch. And as you know, all humans need touch. Teenagers have what I call skin hunger, where they're hungry for safe and appropriate touch from a caring adult. Now, you'll need to figure out what safe touch looks like in your youth ministry culture. It might include, handshakes or high fives, hugs, a punch in the arm. I don't know. I don't want to be prescriptive for every ministry, but I do want you to consider what type of touch communicates value and concern. See, I'm convinced that one of the reasons that junior high boys love to wrestle or jump on your back is because they're dying for some attention and they really don't know how to get it. And they're surely not going to come to youth group and say, "Hey, can some caring adult please touch me?" That's not going to happen. So on this issue of touch, it's important to dialogue and come up with some boundaries as a youth ministry team on what is safe and appropriate. Then wisely use it on your students. They're craving affection. We all crave affection. And even though they won't admit it, they have a deep hunger for being hugged. So let's get physical, all right? So a few ideas to think about and discuss that connect with being a more relational youth worker. And I've got several more ideas, and we'll cover them in another Download Youth Ministry video. But until then, keep your eyes open for those who are unconnected. Look for ways to maximize your time relationally and feed that teenage skin hunger by appropriate touch in caring and authentic ways. That's it. Thankfully, God has a long history of using caring adults, those who are courageous enough to enter into a relationship with a teenager that actually triggers life change. And I was one of those teenagers who was reached by a caring and relational adult. So thank you for being that type of leader.